Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the February 10th, 2021 Norwood Airport Commission meeting. This meeting is being recorded by NCM and the Norwood Airport Commission. Are there any other entities recording this meeting? Seeing none. During the meeting with this go-to meeting format, we ask if you're not participating in any discussion, to put your device on mute, just so we don't have any unnecessary feedback. So first on the agenda, we have an update on the AIP projects with Du Bois and King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Jeff Adler with Du Bois and King. So I'll start out with the Taxiway Delta and Obstruction Removal Project. We did have a Zoom meeting with Fahey and Mass DOT to discuss obstruction removal, different surfaces that we were looking at in an attempt to, clear as much as we can to, get approaches back. So it was a good meeting. I think we came to some definitive conclusions, which is good because we needed that to advance the, the obstruction removal plans that are needed to go out to bid. So right now we're finalizing those plans. And we should be making a submission to FAA, Mass DOT, and the airport next Monday for a preliminary submission. And then hopefully we get some feedback from them in a timely manner, because our goal is to get the project out to bid sometime in the second or third week of March, and obviously receive bids this second or third week of April, and then file a grant application for the construction of Taxiway Delta and the removal of trees for, this coming late summer, whenever we get a, an FAA grant. So that's kind of where we're at on that. So happy to answer any questions. Okay. So then on that, I'll move forward to the environmental assessment that we're working on for the paved safety areas and the relocation of Taxiway Charlie. We did have some additional discussions with Mass DEP regarding the variance that we'll be applying for. And so I think another good meeting with them and with MEPA. DEP was looking for some additional information prior to a formal filing, and we intend on filing that additional information within the next week to get additional feedback just on our our plan of attack, our stormwater, and our mitigation of how we're handling the stormwater and the additional paved areas. So we hope to, like I said, get that in within the next week, get some feedback from DEP, and then, there we'd be finalizing the actual application, variance application to DEP. That which would happen probably late spring, early
Jeff?
Summer. Yep. Oh, you're back?
Is everyone hearing Jeff? I'm getting it. Mine's broken up.
Yeah, mine was broken up as well, Mark.
Yeah, caller 01 there was not muted, Mark. So Jeff, you might have to go back a couple of minutes.
Okay. You want me to go back to the Taxiway Delta project, or do we have some questions on that, or just the EA?
It started when you started the second portion of the EA.
Okay. All right. So I'll just repeat everything I said on the EA. So basically, over the last month, we had a conference call with DEP, with FAA and Mass DOT on the line. And so we discussed just where we're at in preparing our, alternatives for the variance that we're going to need for this project because of the wetland impacts. And so it was a good meeting. And so we are working on, addressing some of the general questions that DEP had, and we hope to be filing some additional information with DEP probably next week sometime. And with that, DEP said they would look at it. they felt with the additional information that that would be fine, and that at that point, like I said, late spring, early summer, we'll actually be filing the DEP variance order for that. And, and that will take us through to, we're still on target to get all our permits and variants by the end of 2021, which would be needed for construction of the Taxiway Charlie relocation, which is scheduled for 2022. So that's where that's at. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that project. Okay. If there aren't any questions, I think that's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
I think Mark's muted.
Yeah.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
A bad connection there, sorry. All set? So I have no questions for Jeff. Anyone else?
I have no questions.
All right. Thank you.
Also, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Russ, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah, sorry to
Actually got a bad connection, Mr. Chairman. Audio's not coming through.
How's the connection?
I can hear you fine, Mark.
Okay,
That's good.
good. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. So do we hear a meeting minutes? The,
You're breaking up, Mark.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 13, 2021.
I'll second the motion. However, there is a typo on the last page, the third page, bullet point number 8. It's LLC is LLOC. With those corrections made, I will second the motion to approve the regular business meetings from January 12th. I'm sorry, January 13th, 2021.
Motion made and seconded with corrections. Mr. Sheehan,
Yes.
Mr. Corcoran,
Yes.
and Mr. Ryan votes yes. Next on the agenda, Airport Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did, in the written report, include a section on the Airport Park Capstone project. This is a project that we hope to receive Mass DOT grant money for. This would be to finish off the Airport Park, which has the benches and the tables, and the town has committed some prior funding to, as well as Mass DOT, to put the abutting parking lot and trees up. So we have, as you know, Mr. Chairman, we had a meeting with Mass DOT officials. They recommended that we submit a grant application. That's actually included in my manager's report. What was not included was the weekly hangar construction project meetings with flight level. We had those throughout the period of my manager's report. Those meetings have gone pretty well. And I don't want to steal Bob Lawrence's thunder because I know he's going to be briefing the commission shortly on that. Did have quite a bit of snow removal and closures of the airport, particularly in February when the winter season really started to gain some momentum. We've had at least 3 storms in February, and so we've been pretty busy on that. A lot of operations work here by myself and definitely my assistant and some of the contractor support that we've received. There's attachments D and E in my written report, these financial reports, which the commission has been receiving for some time at the request of Board of Selectmen. They wanted these broken down on a monthly basis, which is why you see them as January and February. That's, just informational, but I wanted to pass that along as well. For attachments F and G, those are the air traffic control tower counts, their reports to me. On this, the Board of Selectmen asked that I include some symbology to describe the nomenclature that's used by the air traffic controllers. And that's why you'll see that, I believe, on attachment F. We'll also be providing in the future reports some comparative data on the traffic counts that shows the monthly traffic count relative to the same month in the prior calendar year, just to show some trending on the traffic counts, and also as a running aggregate as the calendar year progresses. And finally, I wanted to recognize Pat Fahey, who's the manager of the air traffic control tower. Pat has announced his retirement. Very sad to see Pat go. He was a great controller, great manager, handles a top-notch staff of air traffic controllers who really enhance the services here at the airport. Pat came to the Norwood Airport in February of 2012, so he's been here for about 9 years. He's been an air traffic controller for 39 years, and he's been with FAA for 30. So he retired with FAA in 2012 and came to work for the Norwood Memorial Airport. His last day at Norwood will be February 20th. So just wanted to recognize Pat publicly and to thank him for all of his service to the town and to the airport community. Otherwise, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any questions, I'll let the written record.
Thank you, Russ. Anyone on the commission?
Russ, D and E in your report, those one is for a full month and the other one is for the first 8 days?
Correct, because the Board of Selectmen, they want it broken down by month. The financial report for February is only up till February 8th.
So should we do it so that we have good comparison of 30 days to 30 days? In other words, we get January and February and March. So, because it doesn't really make sense to get 8 days of the month because we don't have, that doesn't tell the whole story.
Right. I don't have a problem with that at all. We can start to do that. It's just, the board asked for that, change recently. And so, with the start of the calendar year, that's how we've tracked it.
Yeah, I think that it makes more sense to look at numbers that are, that are the same 30 days, even if it's in the rears 30 days, that's fine. Because it doesn't tell the story if you're looking at the first 8 days, because we get snow out for the rest of the remaining 20 days of the month. So that's all I have.
Mr. Sheehan?
No, fine, I'll make a motion to approve the airport manager's report as submitted.
Motion made. Motion made and seconded. I do have a question, Russ. I went by the TC3 in West Apron yesterday and it had not been plowed. And then I saw today part of it was plowed. And one of my concerns is some catch basins are covered with the snow that's still there. And those catch basins service the north-south taxi lane. I think you've got to talk with the tenant there, the West Apron and DC3, to make sure those catch basins are not impeded. And also work with council that I think we would fully expect those two aprons to be plowed after each storm event.
Chairman, I agree. The West Apron is about a third plowed. The part that, the 2/3 that is not plowed has got 6 to 8 inches of snow on it. Those catch basins are on the east edge of that apron, and they're now under snow cover. They have been under snow cover for some time. The DC3 apron's about half plowed. It has one catch basin that straddles the West Apron, and that has been exposed, but I definitely agree with that. It is in that tenant's lease that they're responsible for snow removal, and definitely we'll talk to the tenant either directly or through town council on that.
Okay, thank you, Russ. There's a motion made and seconded for accepting the airport manager report.
Commissioner Sheehan votes yes.
Commissioner Cochran votes yes.
Mr. Ryan votes yes. Next up on the agenda, Bob Lawrence from representing Flight Level, update on the hangar construction project.
Chairman, thumbs up if everybody can hear me. Okay, terrific. Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me. This is a real exciting project for the town and for the airport. It's great to have this opportunity to give an update of where we are on the status and share some of the inside baseball with you with how it's going. So first and foremost, it's great to report from the safety, environmental, security, and our neighbors and businesses that abut us. That's been a great success to date. The major site activities, without boring you, getting into the weeds, the civil site work is pretty much complete. The underground utilities are all complete. The large foundations, footing, perimeter, interior, those are all complete. And anchor bolts all cast in place, and building steel erection is ongoing. So the building is coming out of the ground for the 7,200 square foot hangar. We anticipate having it closed in other words, all the roof and the side panels have it closed in by mid-March. And then once that is complete, we'll start the interior, doing the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire sprinkler systems. Thanks to Norwood Light Department, we've had great coordination with them, allowing us to have permanent power, where we have a temporary meter, and we've had a very detailed work plan with contingency plans for cutting over the permanent power the middle of next month. So again, kudos to Norwood Light on that, and a forecasted completion date of the overall project certificate of occupancy. We're shooting for late April, early May. Again, it's all a function of weather. We've had to dig out, as everybody knows, a few times. But it's so far it's working okay for us. I did mention the abutting neighbors and residents, and I just, if it's okay with the chairman and the board, just a quick shout out to how strategic alliance was created with the Norwood Business Park and what they allowed us to do by having access through their job site. That really paid dividends, for the efficiency of the project, and also minimized or almost eliminated the impact to the businesses within the airport, the general aviation community, and the transients that come in and out, bringing their business to the town and the airport. So by doing that, it was really a success story. And the heavy traffic is all done because all the site work is done. So it's just some residual light traffic coming and going. The big steel components come in through the airports, through some of the gates. But I just wanted to share that with you. And again, thank you for letting me have this time. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Sheehan or Mr. Corcoran?
No, I don't have any questions. I appreciate the presentation, and thanks for the pictures you sent over. Looks like it's moving along quite quickly and efficiently, and thank you for your efforts, Bob.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd just like to add that, Bob has done a great job reaching out to Norwood Light, coordinating these meetings with Norwood Light, FAA, our air traffic control tower, and running very productive meetings. He's also reached out to one of the the best airfield lighting contractor that I'm aware of in the state, to set up a contingency plan when they do the cutover. So he's done a great job so far. It's been well thought out as far as the way this project has evolved. I actually took those photos the other day just so the commission would get some sense of where this project was. But and I also want to thank the Airport Business Park. They did step up, and they've helped us so much on this project because they have, in a sense, they've helped to minimize the impact of this construction on the operating areas of the airport. So they kept much of the construction vehicle traffic from ever entering the airport through any one of the security gates. They have their own separate access point thanks to the Airport Business Park.
Thank you, Russ, and thanks again, Bob and Flight Level for making this project go as smooth as it can. And I'm sure the tower has a lot of input in, I'm on a different computer now, so I'm known as Joe Gerard. But when I was on the other device, I didn't get to say thank you to Pat Fahey and best wishes in his retirement. You've been a tremendous asset, Pat, to the airport, and speak for all the commissioners and Town of Norwood Airport users. Enjoy yourself. You've earned it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And, I've enjoyed my time here at the airport, and I really want to thank the Airport Commission and the airport manager for being a great partner and helping me to run a safe operation here at the airport. My replacement hasn't been named yet. Hopefully in the next week or so that will come forward. And I've enjoyed it here.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much, Pat. Next on the agenda, we have the general release and settlement agreement of 2019. Attorney Mina Macarius is here to just give us a quick update. Mina, if you would.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And just a quick update on the terms of the settlement agreement. At this point, effectively, every substantive measure that's in there has been complied with from our standpoint. And I just note BEH has appealed the decision from the district court denying its motion to enforce the settlement. So obviously there is some dispute about that, but from my perspective and based on the court's decision, we believe everything has been complied with. Leases have now been signed with BEH for the West Apron and DC3 apron. The January 31st also marked the end of the 18-month period referred to in several stages of the several points in the agreement for particular communications protocols between the airport and BEH. That's not to say that we would not continue to be in communication as we would with any other airport tenant, but some of the formal procedures that are in there expired as of January 31st. And so that's where we are. And, there's not much more to update than that. Those procedures, to be clear, include some of the weekly sharing of documents and the monthly meetings, I think in particular, that were set up.
Thank you, Attorney Macarius. Any questions from Mr. Sheehan or Mr. Corcoran?
So thank you.
Thank you once again. Next up on the agenda, Flight Level has submitted a concept plan for installation of self-serve fueling cabinet on the DC3 apron. DC3 apron has actually been leased out to BEH, but we do have a submittal. And is anyone from Flight Level here to talk briefly about this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick Burlingham for Flight Level Aviation. Yes, in following up on our prior communications with the Airport Commission, Flight Level would like to install a line off of its current fuel farm to a 100 low lead avgas self-serve terminal. And it currently has leasehold rights that are permitted to do that. the bottom line is that we really believe that this is something that we can do at this time to dramatically increase the dispatch reliability of the airport. And it's always been our business plan to try to do that whenever we can. It's what drives business to the airport. It guarantees that people that fly in will know that they'll be able to fly out again, and therefore hopefully return to the airport and use our services and buy our products. Right now, the airport is missing a self-serve aviation gasoline facility, and this seems like a good time and a good plan to do it. Also, we do understand that the DC3 apron and the West apron have been leased to BEH, and we, our contract rights are limited to installing this facility on the West apron and the DC3 apron. When we put our plan together, we try to do it in the absolute least restrictive possible way, such that the installation of the facility would track the far south end of the West apron and the far west end of the DC3 apron, so that it wouldn't interfere with anything that BEH wanted to do. Also, in considering the traffic flow associated with it, we located the cabinet as close to lot 6 as possible, which is a flight level lot, such that, if BEH chose not to use its DC3 apron or its West apron for any activities associated with the self-serve terminal, flight level would still be able to use the terminal using its own apron, and thereby save for BEH its preferred use of its leased lot. We think this is a good thing for the airport. We stayed within the contractual authority provided with our lease. We'd be happy to talk to the airport if there was another alternative, but that's the sum and substance of our plan, and we respectfully request the Norwood Airport Commission's consent to proceed with the concept, which once granted, of course, now you sort of get into the nitty-gritty of trying to put a fuel system next to a wetland. So there are many regulatory hurdles that will need to be overcome, and all of those will require very sophisticated and expensive engineering. And before we spend that money, we would want to know that we wouldn't make the investment only to have the Airport Commission say no. So we also note that historically the plan had been that fueling wouldn't be allowed on the DC3 apron, certainly during the course of flight levels occupancy of its current leaseholds. That's been the case. That changed relatively recently. And so this is really the first time that we've been in a position to ask the Airport Commission for consent and, anticipate, conceivably the commission granting that consent. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes. So it looks like, at least with the concept plan, the piping would be on lot H. Looks like it might be outside of the West apron and then maybe outside of the DC3 somewhat. But the cabinets you talk about are on the DC3 apron. Have you approached BEH about encroaching on their land or using part of their land to construct this?
We haven't approached BEH, but we certainly have approached the town and the Airport Commission. And, just to go back, the authority that we're granted in our current lease requires that the pipes be underground. So there really won't be any impact to any, above ground activities, except that flight level would need to be able to maintain those lines. If the commission grants approval for the concept, we'll certainly have a discussion with BEH, and we'll see what happens there. But even if BEH says no, we still have a contractual right to do this, and we don't aim to be disingenuous or obstruction about this. It's conceivable that we could pipe the fuel from our fuel farm, along the edge of the west apron and along the west edge of the DC3 apron to a fuel cabinet on our property. But that's not what our lease says we can do. It says that we have the right to put it on the DC3 apron, and that's sort of what we're boxed in with at the time.
Right, but when you say you have the right to put it on the DC3 apron, it says with the approval of the Norwood Airport Commission, who controls at least the underlying land there, but that has since been leased out to BEH. So any use of that would have to be approved by BEH, I would think. Attorney Macarius, any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think your read, the chair's read of the language is correct. It's with the approval of the Airport Commission. It's not an absolute right to be on the DC3 apron. In fact, it appears that there may be some use of that would be inconsistent with that leasehold right now. My suggestion is if you have an objection to that from BEH, I don't know that it makes sense for the airport to grant that approval. It may still be entitled to, but I'm not sure it makes sense to allow one tenant to go under land of the other, where the airport actually does have a say in it, as opposed to we've talked separately about licensed areas. This is not a place where Flight Level has absolute right to do this, and I think it certainly seems to be something that would conflict with the tenancy of your new tenant there.
So would it make sense to direct Flight Level to work with BEH to see if they can bring this project to fruition before they come back to us seeking any kind of approval, I would think, right?
That would be my strong recommendation, given that the parties have made it clear in various letters and filings that they don't agree with each other's use of each other's property. I think that would be wise. I don't think the commission should be approving that entry into BEH's tenancy without some, at least, understanding of BEH that it can be accommodated there.
Thank you, Attorney Macarius. So, Mr. Burlingham, we're not going to take action on this, but do recommend you work with BEH and see if you can come to some kind of an agreement, and then come back to Norwood Airport Commission with something more definitive.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, BEH electrical interest on DC3 apron and West apron. Russ, you want to talk a little bit about that quickly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A conversation by email was started with, initiated by BEH through its president, Chris Donovan, on January 4th. On January 4th, he sent me an email that said that he was, with the use of the West apron and the DC3 ramps, he would need power. He's retained an electrician to hook up a meter, et cetera, as necessary to access power. Could you please let me know who he needs to coordinate with to set up any necessary meters, accounts, access, et cetera? I responded by letting him know that we needed a more detailed description of what exactly BEH was hoping to do electricity-wise on these aprons, since the scope of proposed work may require other municipal officials, as well as a review by the Airport Commission. He responded by saying he just wants to access power. He believed that power was available at the security pole, which holds security lighting and a security camera system. on the west apron and in the ground around the DC3 ramp. My response to him at that time was that there is no direct electrical tie-in on either apron, whether at the security, at the monopole with the security lighting and camera on the west apron or in the ground around the DC3 ramp. In both cases, these are dedicated utilities for the airport authority's security system. And it should be noted that the conduits have been installed on both aprons, which, because they're part of the security system for the airport authority, are off limits to private interests. On January 8th, I did meet with the light department. They sent a crew down, and it was led by Jason Haber, the Nord Lights operations manager. At that time, Jason and his crew spent some time opening manholes along the Gate 3 taxi lane and looking at the transformers sited just north of Flight Levels Lot G, condo hangar complex, and by the center field windsock. Nord Light was essentially reviewing our electrical service from access road onto the airport via the Gate 3 taxi lane for a possible tie-in by Boston Executive Helicopters. And for at least some of this January 8th on-site meeting, Chris Donovan from BEH joined us. Jason from Nord Light sent an email to me later that day on January 8th and basically said that to get separate billable service, BEH would need to run conduit and wire to the existing manhole. And he actually sent an attachment, which you have. And this manhole is located on the Gate 3 taxi lane. This was also communicated to Mr. Donovan at the January 8th on-site meeting. I just wanted to add as a special note, the monopole with the security lighting and the security camera on the west apron. It's currently out of service. The lighting is out of service. It's in the process of being upgraded to LED lighting. This conversion to LED lighting has been ongoing for some months now, and airport management has been coordinating this with Chris Folan from the town's facilities department. So we do anticipate that hopefully soon, the West Apron security lighting system, the lighting will once again be back in service once it's converted over to LED. This conversion, which is in the process, was communicated through Attorney Macarius to Mr. Donovan through Mr. Donovan's attorney. At present, I'm not aware of Mr. Donovan or anyone from BEH approaching Nord Light after the January 8th on-site meeting. But again, that was the meeting, what it did produce with the light department crew actually opening the manholes, looking at the transformers and seeing what the electrical service was. It did provide Nord Light with an opportunity to show in a graphic schematic to Mr. Donovan what he would need to do from a proposed outlet location on the southwest corner of the West Apron to tie in through conduit to the existing manhole just to the north on the Gate 3 taxi lane.
So Russ, so there is power available through that manhole, according to that plan in that document. There were some spares in there that they could run power from either the Gate 3 apron or the windsock area, and then trench across the West Apron to provide service to the West Apron and DC3 apron. So it is available. It's just available, correct?
Yes, and Jason would probably as an electrical engineer, he'd probably go into greater detail on this. My understanding was there was primary service that ran off access road to the transformer by the center field by the center field windsock. It was primary service that could be accessed if Mr. Donovan is interested in running conduit essentially along the westernmost section of the West Apron, due north to the the manhole that's on the Gate 3 taxi lane. So It is available, but he would have to provide the commission with a site plan that would meet the commission's approval and then work with Nord Light from there.
Any questions for Russ? Thank you, Russ. Today, we received an email from Chris Donovan of BEH at about 1:15, requesting to bring up some issues at today's meeting. As chairman, I can allow this to happen even though it's not on the agenda. Mr. Donovan, we can give you 5 minutes and you can go through your list and then we can go from there.
Mr. Chair, just before Mr. Donovan goes, I just want to remind the commission that to the extent that what Mr. Donovan raises is not on the agenda, you all, the commissioners, cannot deliberate on it or speak to it. So if you're taking it as public comments, that is what it is, but you can't speak on it yourselves unless it's something already on your agenda.
Okay, so there's no comment or discussion on this. We can allow Mr. Donovan to bring up the items he's listed in his email if he so chooses. Mr. Donovan,
Can you hear me, Mr. Ron?
I can.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
So Mr. Donovan, we'll give you 5 minutes and then see where we're at, okay?
Okay, thank you very much for that. One of the things I just wanted to circle back with was Russ. The day that he was out there with Norwood Light, the day after that, we went back out there. Russ did not bring up the fact that there was already conduit running from the windsock over to another area that we didn't access. So I ended up accessing that with Norwood Light the day after. And there was conduit in there. There's actually 2 conduits in there that go from that area, which I depicted and sent the email over to the pole area and then over to the DC3 ramp area. And also the AIP engineering shows power, those conduits and power and all kinds of stuff. So I guess my question to Russ is that was the AIP engineering for the West Ramp project where they put conduit in, was that part of the, was that completed in accordance with the AIP project?
Mr. Donovan, this isn't a question answer period. You have some statements to make per the advice of Attorney Macarius. You can make those statements, but since you are on the agenda, there's no discussion or debate on this. So if you have questions for Russ, please reach out during the day on some of these operational issues.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We are on the agenda for our request for power. So I'm trying to understand the conflicting information that's out there regarding what's under the West Ramp right now. So I'm discussing something that is on the agenda, our request for power, and I detailed that in plenty of emails to you and Russ and the commission with no response. So I'm just trying to understand. There's conduit that runs under the West Apron that on the first day that we were out there that I just happened to come upon Russ in the Norwood Airport, Norwood Light Department guys. We didn't access those manholes. I subsequently sent a picture of those manholes where they're located and this conduit. So there's power, according to what Norwood Light told me on the second visit, there's power at the windsock area. So it's not necessary to dig up or trench or run underground conduit. I know that was also part of the 2008 Boston Air Charter agreement where they needed power out on the DC3 ramp to run their fuel system. So are there conduits under there that run from the windsock, and those were open conduits? There was a conduit that was open, and can we access those conduits?
Russ, my understanding, the BEH electrical interest on DC3 Apron, that was just an update for you. Was that an agenda item for BEH to weigh in, or was that just an update what you've received?
That was, as I understood it, just an update from, what had transpired and really the feedback that we got from Norwood Light. in the both the email and the attachment.
Okay, so in light of what Mr. Donovan just said, I suggest, Mr. Donovan, you reach out to Russ and have another meeting with your electrical, person that you've hired, or if you need him in our light department to answer the questions you just brought up.
Well, Norwood Light doesn't have any say-so on the airport, as Russ brought up. They stop at the street. So without Russ being present or somebody at the airport to explain what's under there, I don't know what's under there, and I don't know what's what. And we didn't look at that on the first day that Russ was out there. So, I mean, we're on the agenda for today, and I assume that we're going to discuss the power needs, and I'm trying to figure out, as I sent emails to figure out what conduits are under there. And on the second day, there were conduits. So an engineer doesn't know what conduits go where. The only one that's going to know is if it's in the AIP engineering or Russ, I would assume.
So, Mr. Donovan, Mr. McGuire and I made the agenda. We just confirmed the BEH electrical interest was just an update by Russ. You raised some really good points and questions. I suggest you reach out to Russ in the Norwood Light Department to get together again and figure this out. I think that's the best way. We're not going to be able to settle it here. We don't have plans in front of us. Many of us don't know exactly what manhole is where. So the most efficient way is contact Mr. McGuire and see if they can get a meeting again with Norwood Light, and hopefully we can answer your questions. So we're at 5 minutes, Mr. Donovan. I'm going to give you till another 4.5 minutes to finish what else you brought up in your email that you submitted today at 1:15.
Well, I appreciate that. I just want to reiterate that on the meeting agenda on a new business, it says Boston Executive Helicopters electrical interest on the DC-3 Apron West Apron. It doesn't say anything about an update, but that's fine. I've sent multiple emails to Russ, and I welcome the opportunity to go back out there. We can go out there tomorrow or whatever works for Russ and pull up those other manholes and with the engineering plans for the IP ramp and try to figure out what's going on.
Very good.
Okay, and the other thing I sent was in January, Flight Level drove their truck through the west ramp, almost hitting our fuel truck, and I had sent an email to you and to the commission about that, and got no response.
So I believe that's an issue between you and Flight Level. Have you reached out to them and try to solve this, Mr. Donovan?
Well, I don't know how that's an issue with Flight Level. We have a lease with the town. We don't have any, there's no rights noted in the lease that we have with the town, and there's no.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point of information? This is Commissioner Sheehan.
Yes, Mr. Sheehan.
I think we were instructed by Mina that we cannot comment on any of these things because they weren't on the agenda. So I just caution any discussion after Mina instructed us. So I think we just have to listen to Mr. Donovan and then take it under advisement.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Continue.
And if I'm wrong, I'm sure Mina will correct me.
Continue, Mr. Donovan.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Sheehan. I had also requested to know the status of the parking plan. We'd submitted several parking plans on the West Apron and the DC-3 ramp and gone back and forth, and every meeting it seemed to change a little bit. So I just wanted to know if the parking plan that we submitted was acceptable to the Norwood Airport Commission.
Mr. Chair, this is Mina. Just on that one, in hopes of clarifying it, because it was on the agenda today to have a discussion of the update on the settlement agreement, and this is one piece of the lease they're under. I think we have an email that went to Mr. Donovan and his attorney explaining that we'd like a plan that's stamped and that is one page showing where the parking spots are. That's a condition under the lease. It's not a precondition of the lease, as we talked about at a prior meeting.
Can I just ask Mr. Attorney Macaros, when did that letter go out? Because I didn't receive a copy of anything, and there's nothing that says anything about a stamped plan.
I don't recall the word, I don't recall the exact date, Mr. Donovan, or whether there is the word stamp, but there were multiple pieces of correspondence by email after the lease was signed in late December, pointing out that we need to be clear about what the parking plan is, and 27 pages with multiple just diagrams on it wasn't going to work. And I think that came up at a prior commission meeting as well.
Okay, and then after that, if you're referencing that communication, after that, so you said, can we use a one-page plan? And that was acceptable, and that was the last I heard from it. So
That's correct. I don't believe that's been received, unless I'm mistaken.
okay, do you know if there's been, because honestly, I haven't received anything since then from through Eric or from you. So if you send something, could you resend it, please?
Sure, but sure. I'll see when the last communication was on that. But again, if we ask for the one-page plan, I'm sort of, there's nothing more for me to send, but fair enough. I'll take a look and make sure you got that.
And I had requested before, but again, just the process and the procedures for collecting landing fees. And when I requested that last time, that was denied to me because we weren't an FBO. So I'm just trying to get a copy of whatever the policy and the procedures are to collect landing fees and how we go about that and who we give the landing fees to.
Excellent. Russ will provide that. 10 minutes is up, Mr. Donovan. A lot of these things you can deal with Russ directly, so looking forward to that moving forward. So next on the agenda, we have a couple of items. We have requests for permission to hunt on airport property by Michael O'Brien and Jacob Bennett. Russ, you want to touch base on that for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Received two letters that are in the packet. These are from Jacob Bennett of Canton, Mass, and Michael O'Brien from, I believe Michael is now living in Norwood. These gentlemen want to bow hunt on the airport. They were given approval by the commission back in May of, or actually, I believe it was in April of 2020. And there was a letter that was sent to both Mr. Bennett and Mr. O'Brien, which the commission has received, stating that, they were authorized by the commission to lawfully hunt, bow hunting only on the town's airport land beyond the security fence, with the support of the Norwood Police Chief, William Brooks. The Airport Commission's requirement that the hunting continue to be endorsed by the police, Norwood Police, and in observance of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hunting regulations must remain in force. Additionally, the Airport Commission has made clear in its determination that you only gain access to airport land beyond the security fence by lawful entry, and that the Airport Commission does not support access onto airport land by trespassing through private property. I would recommend a motion to approve both gentlemen for the coming year.
So moved.
Before we go on, Russ, the two letters, they mention a third person, this William Mulvey.
Yes, I have yet to receive Mr. Mulvey's request for permission, Mr. Chairman. So this is just Bennett and O'Brien.
Okay, so there's a motion to allow the hunting per the details Russ laid out to Michael O'Brien and Jacob Bennett. And there's a motion to that effect from Mr. Sheehan. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. Sheehan,
Yes.
Mr. Corcoran,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right, that's pretty much it. We do have to go in executive session for a couple of items. One of them's discuss the January 13th, 2021, or approved January 13th, 2021 executive session meeting minutes. Also, for purpose 3 for executive session, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Town of Norwood Airport Commission, Boston Executive Helicopters LLC versus Town of Norwood. And we will be at the end of executive session, exiting executive session in public session and not returning to public session. So is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. Sheehan,
Yes.
Mr. Corcoran,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you, everyone.